What's up, everybody? We're back. We're going to talk about the most exciting topic you've ever watched on YouTube, on the internet. What is going on in the Portland housing market? We're going to look at what's happened year to date. We're going to look at what's happened in September. But most importantly, if you're thinking about buying or selling a home, we're going to talk about some quarter four predictions, what we're already seeing and what's likely to happen. Because we know when things don't change that much, history often repeats itself. So my name is David Caldwell. I'm here with Krista Britton. For one, she's not sitting in a laundry room, which is awesome. We are principal real estate brokers. You know, it's crazy to say we've been doing this for a long time, almost 20 years. So we are going to talk about some data, and then we're going to sprinkle in some personal experience on it. So let's start where I think everyone wants to start when people ask us, hey, David, hey, Krista, how's the market? In my mind, they're always referring to what's going on with the average sales price. Comparing 2024 to 2023 through September, the first 9 months of the year, the average sales price has increased 2.1% from $599,800 to $612,500. In the same comparison, the median sales price has increased 1.9% from $535,000 to $545,000. So what's that mean, right? In the last 30 years, the Portland housing market has had 25 years of appreciation. The common experience if you're a homeowner is your home doubles in value every 12 years. Having a down year in home sales price and average sales price is exceedingly rare. We had one in 2023. So far in 2024, we have gotten back the value we lost in 2023. But hot take, I think between now and the end of the year, we're highly likely to lose that 2%. And we will talk about that a little bit later towards the end of this.
Cliffhanger.
On months of inventory. Sorry,
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. It's a cliffhanger.
So let's talk about what's been happening year to date and in September for new listings. We had 9 new listings during the month of September. That was a 4.6% decrease from September of 2023 and also a decrease from August. Now, Chris and I, we had talked earlier, like in August and September, gosh, is this a trend? Are we going to see less listings coming in to this time of year? And what have we seen so far in October? Tons of new listings come to the market. Like every day I'm seeing homes come to the market. And honestly, I'm seeing them at prices. I'm like, what are these people thinking? Like, what news outlet are they watching that gives them the optimism to price this way? Given if you look at real estate news across the country right now, everything is about price reductions. Everything is about how many homes are bringing their price down. As an example, if you are trying to sell a home in the Tigard area right now over $1 million, an absurd amount of homes have come to the market recently over $1 million. There is about twice as much inventory on the market today that has sold all year long. So, that is a challenging market. Doesn't mean you can't have success selling, but it's a head scratcher for me. Clearly, people aren't looking at comps. They're just saying, I want this price.
Yeah. It's a lot of I want, I should get, I put this much money in. My house is special. The north wind hits just so. It adds $100,000 to the value. Why can't people see that? Right?
Simultaneously, September, we transitioned to the highest months of inventory we've had in almost 10 years. And I know that basic real estate logic would say that 0 to 6 months is a seller's market, right? That's what we've heard for years, which, hot take, is totally bullshit. Because when the market's declining in value, and the last 3 months, we've seen the average sales price be lower than the month before. Mm-hmm. 3.5 months is no longer a seller's market. A seller's market is when sellers are dictating the market experience. And so far year to date, when we look at last year, we've had the highest number of homes being listed for sale that have been left unsold at any time in the last decade. What does that mean? Last year, about 30,000 people list their homes for sale. Only about 20,000 sell them. This year, we're basically on the same trend line. So we'll get back to that when I talk about why I believe we're going to see value decline in the fourth quarter. Pending sales, 2,076 pending sales in September. That was actually a big increase. Why did that happen? That little blip in rates being at 6.2, 6.3% most likely. People being like, man, I need to get in before rates get even lower. Now, we will talk about mortgage rates in a second. Mortgage rates today are closer to like 6.6.
They are slowly creeping back up.
Yeah, beginning of last year, everyone's saying mortgage rates are going to drop 6 times. Jerome Powell never said that, right? And now there's an open-mindedness to maybe 2 more cuts before the end of the year, but the tune has already changed at the Fed because every time new information comes out, right, we see these different suggestions of what the Fed thinks might happen or what's going to happen in the economy. It changes.
Well, we just saw the report, right? Because in order for them to want to drop the interest rates, right, something bad's got to happen, right? But the reports they keep getting, it's good news. It's good news for the economy. So why would they drop the rates? So
Lawrence Yun, who's the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors, who I think is very pragmatic. He doesn't have that toxic positivity that a lot of this industry has when it comes to what's happening with rates. He's just saying 6% is the new normal. Yeah. And if 6% is the new normal, if you've listened to what we've been talking about for more than 2 years, the market can sustain with 6% interest rates, albeit there's a lot fewer buyers that have the ability to participate. So we'll go back to that, but pending sales, 2,076. Year to date, we've seen 17,451. Now, hey, doing a little bit of math, that's less than 2,000 pending sales a month. But today we have about 5,500 homes on the market. This is going to be important when we talk about the fourth quarter, because we're going to talk about a lot of numbers historically, how many homes come to the market, how many go pending during the fourth quarter of the last couple of years, and where we're at today. And what's that mean if you're a seller on the market today, how you should act? But also if you're a buyer, where's that opportunity if you can afford to buy? But we're averaging less than 2,000 homes a month, roughly, or let's just say 2,000 homes a month. But today we have 5,500 homes on the market. So the common experience if you're a seller is that you're not selling. You're probably experiencing a low number of showings. If you're a buyer and you're going after a house right after they did a price reduction or right when they came to the market, no one ever has really a lot of negotiation power in that instance, right? But if someone's been on the market for 60 days and they haven't adjusted the price, that is probably where you have some ability to negotiate, right? And I think what people should be looking at again is like some temporary or permanent buy downs, on interest rate. Because, let's just do interest rates real quick. I did this based off a $650,000 purchase, which is just a little bit nicer than the average sales price in the Portland metro area. Prevailing interest rate today, 6.68%. Let's assume that you did a 30-year loan with 20% down. Your mortgage or your borrowed money is $520,000. Home insurance about $2,000 a year. Taxes in Portland, which is usually a little bit above 1%. I put $8,000 a year. That'd give you a payment of almost $4,200 a month. Now, $48,000 a year for a housing payment, that's pretty significant. And if we think about the cost of renting versus the cost of owning in today's marketplace, the house that's going to sell at $650,000 is most likely going to rent somewhere around $2,500 a month. So your cost of renting is quite a bit lower than your cost of owning today. I mean, that could be one reason we went from 30,000 home sales to 20,000, right? I mean, affordability is this monster that we can't get past no matter how hard people try, right? We know that people don't give up the equity in their home. That's why the 10,000 people that didn't sell last year going to just cut their price by $100,000 and come back to the market lower. That's why the market isn't crashing, right? We're not selling hot dogs and trying to blow everything out before we have to sell them away. These are people's homes. So, payments and affordability continue to be a huge problem. And let's be honest, there's no relief in pending tomorrow. Marry the house and date the rate. Always forever will be catchy and cute. Cutesy, right? Isn't that a TikTok trend? But maybe forever.
You hate on that saying. You hate on the saying. There's still some truth to it. So we will ever
not if you can't afford the payment 24 months later or 36 months later.
But if you can afford it now, the whole idea is if you can afford it now, buy now.
Can afford it now,
and then later you can make it less. But don't
If you can afford it now, there's a high likelihood mortgage rates will still be 6% a year from now.
That's fine, but buy what you can afford now at the rate, right? That's what I'm saying. So you can date, but later you might have some opportunity to lower it, but don't buy what you can't afford now.
Agreed. You shouldn't buy what you can't
So
afford ever.
the rate doesn't have to be forever.
Yeah, you should
buy what you can afford now.
You should never marry your mortgage. But I saw a reel yesterday online from one of my friends in Louisiana who's an agent, and he's like pretending to scroll his real estate agent's Instagram, and every year the realtor says now is the best time to sell. The best time to buy. Hey, you know what the cost of waiting has been over the last 24 months, Krista? If you're in the Portland metro area and you're a would-be home buyer, zero. You've given up exactly zero financially. Now, maybe you missed out on a house you would have loved living in. That would have been an amazing lifestyle change, and you should have moved forward on that. But even when you look at like the principal reduction on a 7% interest rate, it's nominal. It's not. It really is insignificant. You know, and that's what I'd say. Like, hey, with all this being said, I still think being a homeowner is valuable. As a kid who grew up in a manufactured home park, whose parents never owned real property, and owning real estate has changed my life. You know, and I've watched it change my clients' lives. But this isn't a market you have to rush into, I guess, is what I would want to plead with people, right? Like, you should be a discerning buyer. So let's look at closed sales real quick. Closed sales last month, 1,502. Hey, today on the market, 5,500 homes. If you're a seller, that gap is important to realize when you're thinking about doing a price reduction or being patient. By the way, maybe the best timing for you isn't the best time to get the best price for your house. Hard pill to swallow sometimes, but something that needs to be talked about and discussed. Year to date, 16,336 closed transactions. So we are on trend for another year of 20,000 sales. Now, let's go into Q4. Let's talk about some historic Q4 numbers and put them together with where we're at today, okay? So year to date, new listings, 24,639. How many new listings do we normally have come to the market in Q4 in this new real estate market, 2022 and 2023? 5,252 in 2023. 2022. In 2023, 5,061. We're on trend for about 30,000 listings. If history repeats itself, that'll put us, 31,000 listings. What do we see for pending sales during Q4? 2022, 4,539. 2023, 4,375. So we're on trend for that 30,000 listings, 20,000 sales. What do you need to know if you're a seller? Well, today there's about 5,500 listings on the market. History would suggest we're about to add another 4,500 to 5,000. But history also tells us we're only going to see about 4,500 pending sales. So maybe half of what's actively on the market and what comes to the market actually ends up being absorbed. There's going to be a lot of sellers that are going to have to continue their selling journey into the new year. Or maybe you're on the market today with an agent and you're going to have to rethink a strategy coming to the market with somebody else next year or towards the end of this year if you actually want to get something done. You know, one of the things we hear a lot from currently listed homeowners is their agent saying the market's weird.
Yeah.
The market's not weird. The market's expensive. The market has less people participating in it, which makes it more challenging to be a seller, which makes a strategy more important, which makes education of the marketplace more important. That one comp, the best comp you want to hang your hat on, what's the delta between that and the worst comp you want to pretend like it doesn't exist? What were the scenarios of that sale which may or may not be able to be duplicated? Let's be honest, there's things in a marketplace that are uncontrollable. That's why it's called a marketplace. That's why we always start with data first and try to beat what the odds are or what the market averages are. But if you're a seller, we're in for a challenging time. Here's something that almost always happens month over month in the fourth quarter. The average sales price becomes lower than the month before. What happened in quarter three? Statistically, we lost year or month over month appreciation. We lost about 3%. Usually that gets a little more exaggerated in the fourth quarter. That's where I think it's going to be pretty possible that we go negative on home values year over year. Now, are we going to see a 5% decline? No. I think that was going to happen this time last year. I think we're going to lose about 5% of our value this year. I did. The market was more resilient than I expected it to be. But will it surprise me for the average sales price to go from 612,500 to 600 or somewhere between 595 and 600? Would not surprise me one bit. When you think about, you have hopeful sellers essentially, and if history repeats itself, we're going to have about 4,500 buyers. Now, if you're a buyer, I think waiting for interest rates to decline hasn't been an awesome strategy. I think, to Chris's point, if you can afford a mortgage payment today and the house that you love comes available, should it be something you consider? Yeah. Home ownership creates more millionaires than any other asset class in history.
Mm-hmm.
And the windows in the market change like that, right? Like, we might have sustained interest rates for 6% and people just start saying, screw it, and buying. And home ownership just eats up a higher percentage of your after-tax income. But that's a likely outcome. That's a probable thing. Less people are able to participate in the market. What would happen then? Well, history is going to tell us so far that market appreciation is going to be less. But the Portland housing market normally has 30,000 sales, and right now it has 20,000 sales. For basically, we're going to have 2 years in a row of that. People can only delay their plans for so long. Life happens. People are going to move out of the state. People are going to need more square footage. Some people are going to get, increases in pay at work, which is going to allow them to afford more.
Mm-hmm.
But things change, right?
Yeah, life happens.
Yeah, if you're a buyer, what I'm saying is you should be a discerning one. You should have a complex understanding of the market. You should look at quarter four as an opportunity to be a buyer. Hey, by the way, it doesn't automatically change in January or February. January or February have a tendency to be really good months to buy as well. We talk all the time in our company, like November, December, January, February are 4 of the lowest months in sales in the Portland housing market. That's a good time to be a buyer if the inventory you want to buy exists.
Yes.
And right now we have a lot of options for buyers on the market and more coming too, right? Because people are optimistic, right? Rates are going to go down. Probably the same people that thought there were going to be 6 interest rate cuts by now. and by the way, let's be positive. I'd much rather have a 6.5% rate or 6.25% rate than 7.5%.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, it's not enough to completely change the dynamics of the market. One thing I point to is, like, in 2019, and let me just be a little bit more statistically accurate if I can pull it up. I can't pull it up as easy as I thought.
I think it's interesting too when you look at it. It's like, yeah, what was last year a decrease in like 1% in equity. Essentially, rates going up haven't tanked the market, haven't done that. It's almost just kept it pretty even, right? Yeah, some people might have lost 1%, some people might not have. It's pretty just even. And I think people get really confused by that. Like, oh, does that make it a good time to buy or sell it because everything's just kind of staying flat?
Well, if we look at it this way, if we zoom out, the 30-year market of the Portland housing market has averaged almost 6%.
Mm-hmm.
So to go from 6% to neutral is a humongous shift.
Yeah.
To go from 6% to a negative 2% appreciation, which is what we saw last year, to lose 2%, 6 to 2, like negative 2, that's a big swing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. But I think people panic, right? I don't know. I just remember back to the good old, not the good old days when we had, the Great Recession. And I remember I bought my first place. I was 25 years old, and the market just, 2008 just went, and I bought, and everyone around me was just fire sailing their homes because they weren't worth what they used to be. And I just remember thinking, am I missing something? This seems like a great opportunity to pick something up because everything's on sale.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
it's that old quote from Warren Buffett. Be fearful when people are greedy and greedy when people are
Mm-hmm.
fearful.
Yeah.
And we were talking the other day in the office. I had a seller who was really upset with me. I didn't get him $1 million, but I got him 975 in a very short period of time in
Mm-hmm.
2022 towards the end. The market had already gotten tough. We were already recognizing how challenging the market was. The neighbor's house, which is essentially the exact same house, same square footage, is pending right now for 849 2 years later. And they've been on the market for almost 4 months. So it's certainly not going to close at 849. That's a big swing in value. That is not something that gets discussed
Mm-hmm.
openly by 50% of the agents in Portland. And the reality is 100% of us should be talking about what's really happening in the marketplace. And what's really happening is if you're a home seller, I would argue this is the most challenging or second most challenging year in a decade. How would I quantify that? Well, you could say maybe last year was the most challenging because you lost 2% of your value. You could say maybe today is the most challenging because your likelihood to sell is at the lowest point in 10 years. Only marginally less than last year, right? But has the Portland market kind of hit a cap in what can happen, based on today's environment? Maybe, right? Like it's going to be interesting to see as, people can't delay their plans anymore, what happens. Most sellers are buyers. So as more sellers enter the market, do we have more sales? And does that push pricing up a little bit? If
Mm-hmm.
we have more sellers and the fact that we don't have a lot of new buyers right now, if they have to sell their house at a discount or perceived discount, does that mean they have to go give the next seller the perceived discount? It's going to be really interesting to see what's happening or going to happen when we zoom out or think about the next year. I think what's certain in Q4 of this year is it's going to be challenging if you're a home seller. And if you're a buyer, those challenges for home sellers become your opportunity. So I think maybe my biggest takeaway thinking about what we talked about today and just kind of always is if you're a buyer or seller, what you need is a strategy. There's really big real estate companies out in the world that are trying to turn real estate agents into Uber Eats drivers. And those guys are for sale. You can go work with them. They'll open a door for you and be happy and bring you coffee. They'll be your best fucking friend. But if you want some objective advice, maybe someone to tell you you're wrong, you're asking the wrong questions sometimes, maybe to really help you make a sound financial decision, email us at hello@hillshirerealty.com. And if you want to get like more breakdowns like this of the market, which hopefully are really objective, subscribe to our channel and share this with someone that maybe they're struggling to sell their home right now. There's a lot of sellers in the market right now that are struggling and they might not know why. Until next time.